The Department of Government Efficiency told you that they saved $170 billion. That's the headline. That's what they wanted you to walk away with. Well, here's what they didn't tell you. For every dollar the government has spent since DOGE started, they saved 4 cents, not $4, not 40 cents, 4 cents on the dollar. And in 3 months since the Great Rescue Operation began, the government spent $20 billion more than the same period under Biden. The deficit is bigger, the debt is still growing. Let that register. What did Elon say? Let that sink in. This wasn't a fiscal rescue operation, it was a magic show designed to fool you into believing something can actually stop this train. But we know better, don't we?
And we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit, and if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense. But if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country.
Today, we're breaking down the DOGE numbers, the real ones, not the ones on the website, not the ones Elon put on a wall. Someone needs to do the math. Someone had to do it. So let's do it. Here's the problem. Here's why it can never work. And here's what you can do about it. The number they keep showing you is $170 billion. Contract cancellations, lease terminations, workforce reductions, the wall of receipts, big number, bold graphic, the ticker goes up every day. And if you don't look too closely, it almost sounds real.
What is real? How do you define real?
The $170 billion figure is full of revised entries, inaccurate data, and double-counted wins, contracts that were already expiring, savings that haven't been realized, savings that may never be realized. The New York Times, NPR, and Independent Budget Analysis went through the wall of receipts line by line. They found a fraction of the claimed number. DOGE's own website has had to revise figures down, sometimes dramatically, after independent scrutiny. And this isn't coming from some left-wing critic. The Wall Street Journal, not exactly a bastion of government spending advocacy, looked at DOGE's numbers, and here's what they found.
DOGE's wall of savings has been highly unreliable, riddled with numerous errors.
So, what did Musk and DOGE actually accomplish? And what's next for the agency without Musk?
Elon Musk!
During the election, Musk said DOGE could save...
We can do at least $2 trillion. Yeah!
By March, Musk reduced that projection.
Our goal is to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion.
The numbers that they initially threw out seemed really far-fetched.
There it is, riddled with errors, highly unreliable, their words, the Wall Street Journal. And while DOGE was busy updating the counter while the savings ticker was going up, the federal government spent $20 billion more in Trump's first 3 months than Biden did in the same period the year before. The spending went up. That's not a partisan talking point. That's the Treasury Department's own fiscal data. So, what exactly is DOGE cutting? Let me actually show you the federal budget. 64% of federal spending, almost 2/3 goes to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, income security, and veterans benefits. Mandatory programs, baked into law. You want to change them? You need Congress, and Congress on both sides of the aisle will not touch them. Touch them and you lose the next election. This is not a hot take. This is mathematical and political reality. 14% goes to defense, and I think we can easily discern that nobody in this administration is cutting defense. If anything, that budget is going up. And then there's the interest, roughly 13%. That's $1 trillion a year going directly to service the national debt. $1 trillion every single year, more than the entire defense budget. That money is already spent. It can't be cut. It's already owed.
It's all a fugazi. You know what a fugazi is?
Fugazi. It's fake.
Yeah, fugazi. It's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a...
What's left? Personnel. Federal workers, the people DOGE is actually firing. Personnel costs are 4% of the federal budget. 4%. Let me do this math slowly so it lands, and it's the only way I can do math. You could fire every single federal employee in the country, every TSA agent, every Forest Service manager, every IRS worker, every bureaucrat in every agency. Every single one. And it would not close the deficit. Not even close. The interest payments alone, $1 trillion a year, are more than the entire civilian federal workforce costs by hundreds of billions of dollars. Personnel doesn't even cover 1 year of interest. This is what DOGE is working with. 4% in a budget where the interest payment alone is 13%. Let that sink in. Now let me give you the trajectory. The national debt is currently 101% of GDP. The total amount owed by the U.S. government is now larger than the entire economic output of the country in a year. The CBO, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, projects $23.1 trillion in new deficits over the next decade. That's $2.3 trillion a year on average added to the debt every year for 10 years. By 2036, the debt hits 120% of GDP. By 2056, 175%. These are not projections from Bitcoin Twitter. These are the government's own numbers, published on the record. DOGE claimed $170 billion in savings. The government is projected to add $23 trillion in new debt. The ratio of DOGE's claimed savings to projected new debt is less than 1%. Less than 1%. 4 cents on the dollar was being generous. DOGE is a press release with a logo. The math was never there.
Not even close, bud.
Look, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I need to be doing something right now, let me tell you about the Bitcoin way. The system isn't going to fix itself. We just showed you the math. So the question is, do you have a plan B? The Bitcoin way is a Bitcoin-only consultancy. They'll set you up with full self-custody, hardware wallet, your own node, true verification. They'll lock down your digital privacy, and if you're serious about it, they'll walk you through a Plan B residency in Panama. Bitcoin-friendly, low-tax expat community already there. Location insurance, your stack in a free country. Schedule your free 30-minute consultation using that link below in the show notes. Now let me explain exactly why this math never adds up and why it never will. The federal government collects about $5 trillion a year in revenue. It spends about $7 trillion. That $2 trillion gap gets added to the national debt every single year. This is a structural deficit. The government is structurally obligated to spend more than it takes in. By law. By commitments made over decades of legislation. And you cannot efficiency your way out of a structural deficit. Efficiency saves you rounding errors, but it doesn't close a $2 trillion hole. The interest payments. This is the number that should bother you. $1 trillion a year, and it's not going down. The Fed's rate cut cycle has been slow and cautious. Core PCE still above target. The CBO says we won't hit the 2% inflation target until 2030, which means rates stay elevated, which means the interest bill stays elevated, which means $1 trillion floor keeps rising. And this isn't a new realization. Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, has been saying this for years. The Fed chair, not a Bitcoin maximalist, not an Austrian economist, Jerome Powell. Well, we've been on an unsustainable fiscal path for a long time, and there's no hiding from it. He said that, not once, repeatedly. Over the years, the spending continued anyway.
We've been on an unsustainable fiscal path for a long time, and there's no hiding from it. In the end, we will have to face that, and I think, the sooner the better. And also, these are good times. These are, this is the economy at nearly full employment or in the range, in the neighborhood of full employment. Interest rates are low. It's a good time to be addressing these things. So I put that out there and leave it at that.
Here's what $1 trillion in interest means in practice. You're not spending that trillion on roads, not on schools, not on defense, not on anything that generates future economic activity. You're spending it to pay down a debt that is in itself growing. The Wall Street Journal explained what that actually looks like.
We have so much debt that we're borrowing to pay the interest on the previous debt. Well, that's like getting a new credit card to pay off the old one, and if you're doing that, you're in trouble.
So right now, if interest rates go up just 1 percentage point more than they're expected to, it adds about $300 billion in borrowing a year.
So if some debt is good but too much debt can be bad, when does it become bad, like unsustainable bad?
Getting a new credit card to pay off the old one. That's the United States government. Every year, $1 trillion a year. And the reconciliation bill currently moving through Congress? The CBO says it adds another $4.1 trillion over 10 years, including debt service on the new debt. They're borrowing to pay the interest on the borrowing. Now here's the part where you might say, okay, but we've always managed this, right? We can get through it. The economy grows, we grow out of it. That argument worked for a while. Ledn has been documenting why it stopped working.
And yet the deficit has blown out to 6 or 7%. Even before and after the pandemic, this was already happening. Obviously, it went into overdrive during the pandemic, but we're kind of in this new world now. I'm not the first person to talk about the deficits, but I am trying to bring attention to what's going on now that was not going on for many decades.
Shrinking unemployment, low unemployment, strong economy, and the deficit still blew out to 6 or 7% of GDP. That's the new regime. This isn't a recession-time deficit. This isn't emergency spending. This is structural. The mandatory programs, Social Security, Medicare, grow automatically as the population ages. The baby boomers generation is retiring at a rate of 10,000 people per day. Every one of them becomes a net drain on Social Security and Medicare instead of a contributor. Interest compounds. The political system can't touch either category. So, nothing stops this train. So where does the money go? Who holds the debt? Foreign governments hold a chunk. China, Japan, other sovereign wealth funds, domestic institutions, pension funds, insurance companies, banks, the Fed, the people and institutions that already have capital. And the mechanism by which the debt gets serviced is debasement. The government runs deficits. The Fed absorbs some of it through bond markets. The money supply expands. The dollar loses purchasing power. Gradually, consistently. And here's the consequence. The people with hard assets, real estate, equities, commodities, Bitcoin, well, they watch their wealth hold or grow in nominal terms. The people with cash savings, with checking accounts, with dollar-denominated fixed income, well, they watch their purchasing power erode automatically every year. No vote required. That's the transfer mechanism. That's how wealth moves from people who hold dollars to people who hold assets. And DOGE doesn't fix it. DOGE is theater. The machine keeps running. Banks are tightening. Credit is expensive. The system was just described. The one running $1 trillion interest bill is not on your side. But if you hold Bitcoin, you already have your own liquidity. Ledn lets you borrow against your Bitcoin without selling a single sat. No credit check, no bank approval. Your Bitcoin is the collateral. Pristine collateral. Over $10 billion in loans funded since 2018. Proof of reserves every 6 months. Make your stack work without giving it up. Head over to ledn.io/simply today. That's ledn.io/simply. So what do you do with this? First, let me tell you what you cannot do, because there are a lot of wrong answers being sold right now. You can't vote this away. The $23 trillion in projected deficits is a structural obligation. It exists regardless of who wins in 2028 or whenever. It exists regardless of which party controls Congress. Ronald Reagan ran on cutting the deficit. The deficit went up. Clinton ran surpluses for 4 years. Then they were gone within 3 years of the next administration. Obama, Trump, Biden. Every president inherits the structural problem. None of them fixed it, because fixing it requires cutting Social Security and Medicare or raising taxes dramatically, or both, all of the above, and none of those are politically viable. The system cannot fix the system. That's the point. You also cannot doge your way out of it. We showed you the math. 4% is personnel. You can fire every federal employee and it doesn't close the structural gap. You can cancel every discretionary contract and it doesn't close the gap. The problem lives in the 96% DOGE isn't touching. And here's the dark comedy. DOGE spent months generating headlines about savings it couldn't verify, in a category that structurally cannot fix the problem. While the mandatory programs grew, the interest compounded, and the debt got bigger anyway. That's just a failure of the entire premise. You also cannot save your way out of this in cash. If you're sitting on a savings account earning 4% while inflation runs at 3% and the money supply is expanding, you're not saving. You're barely treading water. And as rates come down, that 4% comes with them. The structural debasement of the dollar is not a bug in the system. It's how the debt gets managed. The Fed doesn't have to print $1 trillion and hand it out. It just needs to allow purchasing power to erode slowly, gradually, over decades, until the real value of the debt is smaller than it was when it was issued. You're on the other side of that trade every day. Whether we realize it or not, that's where we are. You can remove yourself from the inflation mechanism. The debt gets serviced by debasement. The dollar gets printed. The people with hard assets hold. The people with cash savings get diluted. That's the playbook. That's how it has always worked. Bitcoin is the exit from that mechanism, not because Bitcoiners say so, because the math of a fixed supply against infinite printing is not complicated. 21 million coins, maximum. That number doesn't change. And when the CBO revises the deficit upward, it doesn't change when Congress passes another reconciliation bill. It doesn't change when the Fed runs rates longer than expected. Governments can print. They cannot print more Bitcoin. The CBO projects 23 trillion in new debt over the next decade. The Bitcoin protocol will produce exactly 656,250 new coins over that same period through scheduled mining rewards. That's it. That's the fixed side against the government's flexible side. The arbitrage isn't subtle. Now, I want to be specific about something because this distinction matters. The exit is not buying a Bitcoin ETF. It's not a paper claim on Bitcoin through your brokerage. It's not holding on an exchange. If you own a Bitcoin ETF, you own a dollar-denominated instrument that tracks Bitcoin's price. When the system has a crisis, that instrument lives within the system. It can be frozen. It can be suspended. It is not the asset. Self-custody, your own keys, Bitcoin on a hardware wallet connected to your own node. That's the actual exit. That's the position the people who understand this have taken. Strategy holds 738,000 plus Bitcoin. They don't hold ETF shares. They hold the coin. And there's a reason for that. The system isn't going to fix itself. The numbers are public. The CBO published them. The Fed chair said it on camera. The Wall Street Journal ran the math on DOGE's own savings figures. Nobody is hiding this. It's just that most people are waiting for someone else to fix it. Nobody is fixing it. Stack Bitcoin, take self-custody, get off the exchanges, get off the paper claims, get the actual asset. Because the system is working exactly as designed for the people who figure out the exit first. Are you one of them? SAT 123 is for people who take sovereignty seriously. Not just digital sovereignty, physical, satellite phones for when cell towers go down. Starlink kits for off-grid internet. Faraday bags to block tracking and EMP. Portable power so you're never dependent on the grid. Self-custody doesn't end at your wallet. If you're stacking Bitcoin, you should be stacking this gear too. Don't forget to use code SIMPLY at sat123.com/simplybitcoin and get 15% off your entire purchase. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a pump by sharing with somebody who thinks Doge fixed the debt. They need to see the math. Drop a comment. What percentage of your savings is outside the fiat system right now? Let's see it. I'm Rustin. This is Simply Originals Raw Signal. Set those notifications. We get a lot more coming your way. Love you guys. Catch you next time.
If you prefer to go down with the ship, you.